All-Star break starts for the NBA on Friday, so 4 days worth of games before we get into the All-Star break, and then the Pels have 23 games following the All-Star break. May not have Zion Williamson for any of them. He has re-aggravated the hamstring injury. David Griffin on Zion.
Zion, I know Coach had alluded to it Tuesday, may not play till after All-Star break. We've actually earlier this week confirmed that Zion did re-aggravate his hamstring injury. I think we're looking at multiple weeks past All-Star break that he'll be back. What that looks like in terms of timeline, I really can't tell you. Much as we have throughout this, we'll continue to image him, and post-All-Star that will happen. It won't necessarily happen the day after All-Star, but at some point we'll get through that process once the team gets back together post-All-Star from the break and reassess where we're at and try to have a little more clarity on a timeline. But for now, we know that he won't be back anytime shortly after.
Mario, what's our rule? What's my rule? I don't want to get you in any trouble. What's my rule when we have a timeline on Zion injuries? What do I always say?
Double it.
Whatever they say, just double it. And we did this time. We doubled it, and that still wasn't enough. I don't think he's going to play again in the regular season. If they make the playoffs, this is beyond frustrating because this does not appear to be his fault. He re-aggravated this injury. It's not like he went and got on a roller coaster somewhere. It's not like he was dancing in a club somewhere and somebody bumped into him. He was working out. He was in, I think it was a 3-on-3 that he was in. He had been working his way diligently back. They put the weight clause in his contract. He was in shape. I mean, it wasn't okay. If he was overweight or he was doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing, then you could get mad at him. But that's not the case here. He was in shape. He was playing great. He was working his way back. He was rehabbing. He's on the bench. The body language is good. He's encouraging his teammates. He wants very badly, from my eyeball test, to be back on the court. It's not always the case with everybody in the NBA, right? Some of the guys, you wonder, you really interested in playing, or you just you consider this a part-time job? I don't think of him in that vein. Now, when he went to Portland, I did. When he removed himself from the team the last time he was seriously hurt and broke off contact for a while before the C.J. McCollum trade, when C.J. kind of reeled him back in and said, look, man, you need to come home. I did consider that kind of a, man, are you serious about this? Because nobody sees you, nobody hears from you, nobody knows anything. That's not the case this time. The case here is you have a player that simply is going to always have a hard time keeping himself healthy. His body type is unique. I can't think of any other players that have his size that play with that level of explosion. The Barkley comp is, in my opinion, not a very good one because he's probably at his playing weight somewhere around 40, maybe 50 pounds more than Chuck was when Chuck was in his prime. And Chuck was a unicorn back then. He was round mound to rebound. Nobody that was that height, that weight, that kind of explosiveness and that kind of ability to score had been seen in the game. Adrian Dantley was a smaller kind of a post player that got a lot of his points, but he was nowhere near as thick as Barkley was. So here comes Zion, and he's much bigger than even Barkley was. So when his weight was a problem, you knew you were always going to deal with some kind of impact injuries that were going to, reduce the amount of games that he could play. This, though, is so incredibly frustrating because, like I said, he has been doing the things that you would do to get yourself back. And a hamstring, we said this a million times, if you don't let it completely heal, then you're right back to the drawing board. This is as discouraging as it gets because with him on the floor, they looked like a team that was ready to make the next step, that was ready to maybe advance around in the playoffs. It could have been maybe a team that got in the upper half of the Western Conference playoff standings. When he was gone for a while there, they were first and they were second, and when Ingram was out, they started to slide. I don't know what you do about this if you're David Griffin. Other than this is going to require an inordinate amount of patience, and we're kind of out of patience. Through what is 4 seasons now, we're talking about a guy who's played about 40% of the games, and when he plays, he's a star. We made the Bill Walton comparison last week. Walton, when he played, was a star. They reduced his minutes as his career, wound down. And he was out for almost 4 calendar years. When he came back from that, he was on another championship team, and he was the 6th man of the year, and he played in 80 games. Zion's a lot younger than that, but they're not going to trade him. They're not going to move on from him. But it does raise the question, and there's not an easy answer to this. But if you're David Griffin and you have 2 players that have demonstrated over now a long sample size, multiple seasons, that they simply cannot stay on the floor enough for you to be able to count on them, then what do you do? Because like I said, you're not going to trade Zion Williamson. You're not going to cut Zion Williamson. All you can do is wait for him to get healthy. For Brandon Ingram, when he has missed time, it's been for a variety of things as well. But he doesn't have the body type that Zion does. I don't know that this. You would think it can't continue for the rest of his career. But if these players are this when they are at the beginning of their careers, as they age, you really gotta worry about it. I don't know what you do. Like I said, there's not a move to make. Outside, what are you going to do? You gonna trade one of these guys? No. You're not going to cut one of these guys? No. All you can do is wait for them to get healthy. Now, in the offseason, is this going to require some discussion about, God help me, load management? When Zion eventually gets back, are you going to have to look at maybe playing him fewer minutes? I don't know that minutes usage was the reason that he's hurt here. I don't know if it was the reason that he was hurt the last time. But Mario, you're calling it. You got a game. You're calling a game tomorrow night.
No, we're not broadcasting again until March 8th. It's only like 12 games.
Okay,
but I'm gonna be watching.
Yeah. So you've been down there, and you can. When both Ingram and Williamson were out, the top 2 guys on your team, top 2 scorers on your team, the level of frustration is just off the charts, I'm sure.
Yeah, this bites. I mean, this is Ingram and Zion's 4th year together, and they played in 93 games. Like, Ingram's missed a lot of games, too. It's a similar issue with him, unfortunately, and that goes back to his Laker days, not even just with the Pelicans. So you have a core of 2 superstars that are top 15 players when they're healthy, but unfortunately, and 4 years in, they have not been healthy enough.
Yeah, it's not a small sample size anymore. It's a very large sample size. So discouraging news from down there. But if they're saying weeks, I can't imagine he's back this regular season, and probably not in the playoffs either. If he does, great. I'll hope. But we had kind of targeted outside of the All-Star break, right after the All-Star break, that he would be back, and that's not going to happen.